Stupid! Stupid!
Relax. It's all in bad taste.
They went about Macy with the accent as well.
You did what to the dog?
Can't stop.
What mouth
This
exercise
is
did you do
probably
to
the best
dog?
way we could start this episode. This is the weirdest possible conversation I can imagine, and for one of the weirdest movies we're going to cover. So let's just start. Let's fucking do it. Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to get weird. We've got the whole gang here, and we are here to welcome you. Yep, I don't know what that was. I'm going to have to...
Have you already watched this movie today?
Hi there, everyone, and welcome to the Bad Taste Buds podcast, the podcast where we talk trash about the very best of the very worst in cinema. I am, as always, your host, Liam, and joining me today, we have the usual suspects. We've got Jack joining us. How have you been, Jack? Universe still holding itself together where you are?
Yeah.
as much as you can hope in these trying times. And as always, joining him, we have Hannah. No parallel timelines opening up for you, eh?
No, we're all good at the
We're all
moment.
good for now.
Yeah,
for now, we'll see how March.
See how my
March
mind's
goes.
bent after this film, but we'll see.
And last but not least,
And I'm thinking about how naive I was in 2007 to think that Dwayne Johnson could never become the president.
Yeah.
But here we are in the real present universe, and I give it 7 years before he's running.
that's it. Dwayne,
Ryan's opinion corner.
I love it. And if that intro didn't confuse the fuck out of you, the film we are covering today certainly will. Today we are covering the sophomore film of auteur director Richard Kelly, best known for his influential cult film Donnie Darko, and probably one of the most... I love it, yeah.
You've made me watch that 100 times. I used to love it.
It's arguably it's arguably the film that got me into films. There's a couple I can trace back to why my passion for films kind of stemmed from, and Donnie Darko and Blade Runner are the two that I try and the origins of the species kind of thing. Because I remember I have vivid memories of watching this when it came out in 2001, so I would have been minimum 7, 8 when it was kind of big.
Did you see it exactly when it came out?
No. So I remember my sister.
Quite a dark film for a 7, 8 year old.
This is the thing. I think my sister had it on VHS or DVD at that time. I can't remember if DVDs were big. My mind doesn't go that far back. But yeah, she had it on video, and I remember me and my dad started watching it one night, and he turned it off after about 10 minutes because it was highly inappropriate for a 9-year-old to be watching, as a responsible parent might do. But I remember sneaking down afterwards and watching it, when they were in bed at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, popping it in and traumatizing myself. Because if you've seen Donnie Darko, it's a pretty freaky fucking movie. It's an exceptional movie. I love this movie to bits, and I always have. And exceptional film. I remember I grew up with it, loved it, and I was so excited when Southland, the second film from Richard Kelly, was coming out. Really, really big hype behind it. Really cool actors, cool stars. I remember it coming out and it just being this thud.
I watched Donnie Darko for the first time last night. Have it in a prelude to this, as I'd never seen it before as a kid. I know my parents loved it and recommended it, but I just never got around to watching it as a kid. And yeah.
So
really...
from watching Donnie Darko last night, what do you think you're going to enjoy out of this film?
From what I've heard, Donnie Darko was very, open to interpretation, very out there, no real conclusive sort of this is what happens in it. It's very much up for grabs as we had to fucking watch a YouTube video on
I think that was
theories
the intention, wasn't it?
We watched a 20-minute YouTube video discussing all the possible outcomes of Donnie Darko after it came out.
While.
So it sounds like he had a massive success with Donnie Darko, and now he went, I can do whatever the fuck I want.
Pretty much exactly what happened.
And it sounds like he took it too far.
Southland is one of those films that it does. It's a film without an editor. This was you kind of have made this masterpiece. We don't have to we can almost let you off the reins in the second one, and they gave him so much leeway that he just made literally whatever the fuck he wanted. I mean,
didn't he say to understand it that you have to read the 2 preceding books?
Yes. So
fuck that.
Southland Tales is one of those films that it's an effort. It's not something you can watch passively.
But then so are the bigger things the Marvel universe. You could go into that into huge depth. I think the thing is though, you can come away from watching the standalone movies understanding sort of what you've watched. What I've heard is this: you do genuinely need to know everything about the universe and what's going on before anything fits into space.
I was talking to one of my work colleagues the other day, and I was talking about WandaVision, and she was like, "Oh, that sounds really good. Where's that?" And I was like, "Disney Plus." And I went, "Oh wait, have you seen the other Marvel stuff?" And she went, "No." And I went, "Okay, never mind.
You've got
I retract my recommendation until you've seen all fucking 400 films first."
I mean, for me anyway, my knowledge of my history with Donnie Darko, even it's everything that's right about the independent film scene. It was this unknown guy, this guy who didn't have many credits behind him. I think he worked as some music director videos before, and he kind of made a lot of friends in the industry. they gave him an opportunity, and it was, you're right, he hit it out of the park. It was a home run. And then second time for it to premiere at Cannes Film Festival to a heckle and booze and people just absolutely slating this thing. It's just this fall from grace, this kind of immediate like rise and fall. Usually it takes like 10, 15 years for this to happen, but
I don't know if it was just like uncultured me as a child or whatever, but I remember being sucked in by the books because the VHS had Frank the Bunny on the front and it was a scary picture. I went and watched it and I didn't understand it, but I did have child brain. And then rewatching it.
Child brain.
I was, the brain of a child. Because I was a child at the time.
Certified donkey brains.
In a jar under his bed.
Well, I didn't understand it, didn't enjoy it. Rewatch it now, did enjoy it. Overwatched it now, no longer enjoy it. Southland Tales, very much the same. First few run-throughs.
Such a weird one.
Wasn't for me, but now I'm in a good place with it.
Southland Tales is fantastic. I don't care what anyone says. This is going to be me showgirlsing it up again and defending the fuck out
I'm not
of
even
this.
going to try
So
and
with
fight you on it.
awards, right?
Yeah.
It was obviously nominated in the Cannes Film Festival, obviously. 'Cause
Obviously.
And then it was also nominated for the Golden Trailer Awards.
These are things I've never heard of.
And then Scream Awards as well as the Best Science Fiction Movie. But the one it actually won was the Village Voice Film Poll Worst Film Award.
So it
Does
wasn't
the golden trailer just mean it had a good trailer?
I don't
Is it like
Because it did have a good
trailer? Is
trailer.
in like
Yeah, the
people
trailer
who work
was-
there
was pretty
in the
bitchy.
trailers, or the actual trailer's really good on TV?
To be fair, was the trailer good because the trailer was good, or was the trailer good because every scene was just another person? You were like, the fuck, what is this film? It's just jam-packed with everybody
It's
they
got
could
every
find
single
from...
famous person from 2007 I
Yeah.
think I've seen in. This being said, like it's exciting to see this with people who've never seen this before. Me and Ryan obviously have seen this. I've seen this about 8 times now, and I think I've just started to understand what it means. I've just started to piece the puzzle together.
I did see that this was the first film that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was just Dwayne Johnson.
Dwayne.
Oh, this is when he evolved.
This is
kid.
when
this is his final
stopped
not,
being
film.
a rock.
not the best film to do it in, but
Fuck you right off, because it is. Secondly, but this is the thing. Even the casting alone says a lot to kind of the principles and the themes of the film. Like he casts very kind of almost has-beens at the time. Like
yeah,
people who
they were all
were.
pop culture
I would
90
say Sarah
references.
Michelle Gellar was a
early
has-been.
She was
90s.
like well past the Buffy prime, and you think
yeah,
Sean William
skills.
Scott was kind of washed
Yeah,
up and
Stifler.
Stifler.
Yeah.
There was even like logic in his madness, even with kind of pre the casting of the film. Like these are people who are meant to represent these kind of washed up pop culture representations of what America's like. And once you see the film, you'll see its depiction of America. It is extremely satirical. Like again similar to Showgirls. It's a satirical lens at America as a whole, and especially America's paranoia post 9/11.
And
I feel like I'm already saying stuff that doesn't make
And it
sense.
does in other things on top of that.
Similar
another
to
20
Showgirls
things.
as well. This is another one where the director swears it's his best work, despite the fact having
Is
criticism.
Yeah, this is
misunderstood
Magnus
child.
Opum.
I
It's
believe
another,
he-
it's another Verhoeven Showgirls case where he has
Yeah.
like actually well respected, well received films, but
Yeah.
still thinks this was.
But then a bunch
there's
of
magnum
people
opus.
do also agree with him again. Like a lot
You've
of
got
pe-
one. You're looking at one right
Yeah,
now.
exactly. Apparently,
absolutely.
it's either known as a masterpiece or just such a mindfuck that no one understands it and walks away thinking it's a bit shit. But is it just your inability to understand what he was grasping at, or is it the fact that you tried to shove 60 million novels worth of information into a 2.5-hour mind-bending fuckery of a film?
It does make sense if you're willing to put the work in.
Thing is,
which
yeah, I
think-
don't hate the concepts.
Yeah.
I remember once I understood, I was okay with it.
It's because regardless,
I made peace.
regardless, similar to Verhoeven and similar to Showgirls, you have a filmmaker, who knows his craft, who knows how to direct actors, who knows how to put interesting visuals on the screen, who knows how to take risks and have original concepts. And I think a lot of the time directors get kind of cast away, like just because their original concepts don't land with the mass appeal, the mass audience. You think of people like Terry Gilliam, the guy. You guys watched a film a few years ago that you guys have talked about. What's the Terry Gilliam film? There's like
Yes, him.
Dark Matter or something, or Dark Zero. I don't
Zero Theorem.
That's the one.
Oh,
yeah.
that was fantastic.
People throw Gilliam's name out because he's like this auteur, and David Lynch as well. He's like these weird, kind of creative, almost Eldritchian.
Oh my god!
directors.
I remember it was
a bit mad.
totally abstract, but quite mesmerizing to watch.
Of a lot of the style like Gilliam and that Lynch created or at least perfected. But I just feel like his people weren't as receptive to him because he had these big names, because he had this massive budget. This was made on if you bear with us 2 seconds, this was made on a budget of 17 million, which for his second film it's nothing Marvel money, it's no Disney money,
No,
but
but
it's
for a second film, mind you, coming off the back of the release of Donnie Darko, though,
Yeah.
would you say it's a reasonable amount?
It was a massive step up. I think Donnie Darko was on something like 1 million budget wise. Like it was bare bones. Like even the big actors.
The special effects aren't brilliant in Donnie Darko with the tunnels, but they don't need to be. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, the actors in that, again, I think a lot of them were kind of pro bono work. They were just doing it because they wanted to be part of the independent film scene and they were excited to be in something so original and creative.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now, you up the budget, you up the special effects. You'll notice in this is a much glossier film. You've got these kind of elaborate sets, and you've got a whole city of Los Angeles that they have to create. It's like dystopian, Orwellian, futuristic hellscape. But it was only, I think he set it because it came out in 2009. It came out in 2007, but he set it in 2009. So he was like predicting America to quickly kind of go down this rabbit hole of observation. What's the word where it's like the Big Brother thing?
My mind went numb about 5 sentences ago.
Surveillance, mass
surveillance. That's the one. Because you'll notice the film kind of digs into themes of paranoia in America, especially post-war, and it plays around with this thing. America's gone to World War III and it's come back and it's not survived basically, and it's like this husk of what America used to be.
So
it's like
very much like sort of Man in a High Castle kind of.
I thought you were going to say
weird.
very much like kind of what America is now.
Well, I suppose, yeah.
With celebrities running for office. I mean, that was a big theme that people were laughing at. Like one of the big themes in this is like that kind of idea of celebrity culture.
You laugh at it, but Ronald Reagan had already happened. I don't know.
I guess, yeah. But it's more like the Kanye Wests of the world. That's what I'm thinking. Like the ones who else was like the...
I had no idea that Ronald Reagan was famous prior.
Ronald Reagan was like a famous actor or something prior to his presidency, I'm sure.
There you go.
I mean, like, I haven't Googled I haven't like researched
American
his factors.
We just write in American history right now.
America's listeners, let us know. I mean, you might be spot on. That went over my head as well.
Look at me learning things today.
That's why I'm here.
It makes sense if you're willing to put the work in. It's
well,
one of those
I'm wondering, with the
watch.
books, how much this would make sense. Are any reviews? Because the books are really hard to get. Have people said this is a masterpiece if you do read them?
I'm not sure if there are any reviews specifically that I've read that refer to the novel, because they're not just books, they're 2 massive graphic novels. Like they're like Watchmen-sized graphic novels.
I'm not against that as a concept. I mean, one of my favorite video games franchises is the Dark Souls series, which do a lots of like story-based, world narrative where you've got to read item descriptions. The amount of time I've spent on fucking YouTube videos trying to make heads or tails of the actual story going on and the narrative. But I didn't feel like, oh God, I've got to look at this or I've got to look at that, because I was engaged in it and I was engrossed in the world and the gameplay and the narrative. Like the narrative was genuinely interesting.
You've got to work for it, so you get that sense of satisfaction.
It almost, and I think that's probably what he was going for, where you've got to, it feels gratifying to have kind of put the legwork in to get it. But, and like with Donnie Darko, I didn't care that I had to watch a 20-minute film just to look at all the possibilities of what actually was happening in it, because I enjoyed the film and I engaged in it.
It makes you work for it.
And that as a concept is fine if the work is worth engaging in.
I mean, Donnie Darko was absolutely bonkers too. I mean, you guys watched it recently. I've seen it multiple times. It's another film that I think severely is hindered when Kelly is left to his own devices. You see the edited version, the theatrical cut, which is the one I told you guys to watch.
And it's the one that we did watch.
Yeah.
And I still don't think that we... Obviously, it took us a while to understand like all the themes and stuff of the movie, but we came away with the general gist of what happened.
And you've now seen all the scenes after watching that cut, right?
And the director's cut sucks. Like it does. I'm sorry. There's a big fiasco in the kind of the film criticism industry saying that the director's cut of Donnie Darko was a rare case where the director's cut ruins the experience because it explains everything.
I think that's what we saw when we watched the Explain video. It showed a lot of the scenes that we'd never seen before, and had we seen them in the places where they would have been, we'd have probably got a bit more of it a bit earlier on. But I liked the fact that you were up until the very end. Like, I don't know what's going to happen because you don't know what's true and what's false and what's actually going on.
It's a puzzle box.
So many...
It's not a movie, it's a puzzle box. And what the director's cut does, and what you'll see, the director's cut was Kelly without his editor doing whatever he wanted. Southland Tales is Kelly without an editor doing whatever he wanted. What happens is you turn one of the coolest early noughties science fiction, emotional, deeply affectionate family dramas about time travel into more of a textbook early noughties sci-fi hokum in the same vein as something like The Butterfly Effect, which again, it deals with big themes and it deals with interesting concepts, but it does them in a dumb way, whereas Darko did them in a really smart way. That's just kind of... And I think that's reflected in Southland Tales, because you see, he almost was untouchable. It was almost like, right, I can do whatever I want now. And he did everything. Like, he just went nuts.
I feel bad. It's like someone trying to be like, I just want you in my brain. I want you to understand what I'm understanding.
Well, he did himself say that when he was writing the novels, it basically caused him insanity. He was this idea sounds like it's just so big.
Too big for
the
the
fact he
cinema,
did it
yeah.
in such, well, not just a cinema, but the fact that he did it in such a short space of time. Do you know, he'd just come off like Donnie Darko. He was going into the box. So there was only a couple of
A little
years,
window,
which for something that seems so big. You know, how long did
Almost
it take Tolkien
impossible.
to make the Lord of the Rings series
That's
and all
it.
of that sort of stuff? It's a long time coming, and this was sort of compressed. So it would be amazing to see, say, if he took 20 years, I don't know,
Imagine.
what he would come out with.
It is. You can't say that he wasn't at least ambitious. That's the kind of the one takeaway you can't have is that it wasn't ambitious. And you guys are going to have fun watching it. Again, it's like Showgirls. You aren't going to be bored. I'll give you that much. You might be infuriated. You might be frustrated, but you won't be bored.
Yeah, like once I did get this, and I'm thinking now that at the time I was like, yeah, it's fine. It wasn't worth it. Maybe watching it today, I'll think differently, but I rarely change my mind.
Now, a lot of the film reviews, the critics, what they said on release of this, there were a handful of positive ones that kind of were almost sympathetic and saying, yeah, it's ambitious, it's a lot, it's almost overly ambitious, like he's kind of tried to cram too many things, and I don't disagree with them necessarily, but a lot of the reviews were also absolutely scathing, like it's what this one critic, it's the sort of experience you feel embarrassed about even though you had nothing to do with it. Entirely misdirected, the film never gels or even makes sense.
No, like I'm thinking now, scenes in my head are just random and all over the place. What I remember, I don't remember the cohesive narrative. I'm just remembering this scene happened and this scene happened. No idea who it related to or where about it fit.
Now, again, I'm kind of coming opposite. I think I've seen this a few more times than you.
Yeah, I'm only on twice.
Well, for me, anyway, this is more of an experience that is a tapestry. It is interwoven. It's disingenuous, I think, to say that it doesn't all gel and it doesn't fit together. I think it doesn't fit together if you're passively watching it and you're not really taking it on board and you're not trying to do the work. It's a film that forces you to do work, which I know for a lot of people is not what you go to the cinema for.
Is it like looking at a cross stitch and only being able to see the brown parts, and then the rest of it you've got to really go into like?
I mean, that was a reference I'm never going to understand. What do you think I am?
I mean, it's
You say it's like an interwoven tapestry, which is fair enough.
Okay.
But is it like an incomplete one, really? Like
If
if you watch
I
this,
wanted
you
to hear the
only
note she
ever
didn't
watch
play, I
this.
could have done that from home.
It's more like sorry. It's more like wait, what? That jazz reference.
Simpsons reference.
Yes, Simpsons reference. I remember it now.
Oh, Liam, you
I
didn't
think.
get one?
Fuck off. I think it's a tapestry that is complete, but it's a tapestry of one of those kind of H.P. Lovecraft Eldritchian nightmares that you're not allowed to directly look at without losing your mind.
Maybe a
If that makes
TV
sense.
show. Maybe it would work in a TV show narrative.
When they had more, because again, one of the problems, and I will admit this, there is problems with the narrative because it is a lot. There's about 4 interweaving narratives. I'll go through kind of a bit of a plot synopsis, probably from when we come back from watching the main film.
It's trailer time now.
I think it's almost trailer time, so I want to give you guys the experience
Let's go see why it was nominated for this award.
To say that there's a lot going on would be an understatement. We'll give us that. Even from the trailer, we can see that.
I'm going to tell you the story of the journey down the road not taken. This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends.
Okay, we are just back from watching the Southland Tales trailer, and that's about 10% of the movie you're about to watch, and that was a lot. Like, a lot.
Excellent trailer.
It's a great trailer. Again,
Really well shot, really, like, you know.
the soundtrack is stunning.
I'm excited about the soundtrack because the movie's score was done by Moby.
The score was done by Moby, and the songs they include, again, you've got Pixies, you've got Killers, you've got
Elbow.
Elbow,
Yeah.
a wonderful, like, again, Kelly's not a guy who doesn't know how to put a film together. He just puts too much. He just puts far too kind of. You hit the nail on the head when you said this is a film without an editor. That's the problem you're going to see kind of going into it. A lot of people kind of make comments about is it pseudo-intellectual or is it actually trying to say something or is he just trying to look pretentious, look smart?
Oh, I feel like he's definitely trying.
He's trying. Whether or not he's succeeding is the other question.
What's he trying in? What's he trying for?
I do think these kind of movies should be celebrated, though. I do think these
Yeah.
kind of different original concepts, ones that don't kind of adhere to normal movie making rules, they should be celebrated because at least the director's trying something different.
This
Yeah.
is true, yeah.
We're not going into
Yeah.
watching Transformers 7 Revenge of Michael Bay's fucking bank account or whatever.
If you gave him like a 6-hour movie to make, I would probably sit down and watch it and enjoy it more because I'd have more time to get used to the different threads.
Before we do get into the movie, because... Oh, sorry, Jack. Yeah.
I'm already vibing that this would have made a better series than a film.
yeah,
There's just too much
exactly.
going on.
But interesting enough, yeah. I think so. We've got The Rock as an
Boxer
actor.
Santero, he's like an ex-actor turned politician. So again, a little bit ahead of its time. Like I feel like this is something celebrity culture is so massive in politics now that he was kind of almost predicting it in 2007.
Yeah, I read Kelly was trying to not pigeonhole the actors and try to give them a role very different to what they typically play as.
Well, you have Sarah Michelle Gellar, who obviously was claim to fame as Buffy, which Hannah, you heard there. We're massive Buffy stans. I don't think Jack, you're not as much.
She does a musical number as well in this, doesn't she? Which I'm sort of excited for, and not at the same time, because I think we can all agree from watching Buffy that what was the episode, the musical episode?
Once More with Feeling.
Once More with Feeling. That she's not the best singer.
Oh, she's horrible.
No, but this is like a satirical pop song that's meant to be like generic pop.
She's basically playing Kim Kardashian. Again, this is like the prediction. I say prediction,
Buffy,
but there was Paris Hilton and Lindsay Lohan back in those days.
Yeah, because Buffy's like feminist. She's a powerful character. She's strong, and same with Daphne and Scooby Doo. She was very powerful, and in this, she's like what ex-porn star,
she's an ex-porn
pop
singer who's
pop
very vapid.
icon.
They don't try and do much with her as far as like elevating her out of that kind of very bimbo-y stereotype. And I think again that's what she wanted.
I will say I fucking miss a lot of these actors, and it's been so long now that I'm ready to see them all.
Sean William Scott.
It's gonna be so nice.
Sean William Scott. I used to have the biggest. I think he was one of my first big.
Didn't we
crushes,
all?
As Stifler in American Pie.
Yes.
But again, he was someone who was pigeonholed into playing that kind of movie, and I almost feel like Kelly kind of wanted Tarantino, the way Tarantino took John Travolta's career and kind of revitalized it. I think he wanted to do the same with these actors.
Well, Pulp Fiction was one of the films he said was a big influence.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
that and Dr. Strangelove and what was the other one? I remember reading somewhere.
Anything by David Lynch. Eraserhead, probably. So I think we are kind of getting close to watching this film, but before we do, I just want to mention that the aftermath, anyway, of Southland Tales kind of led to his exiting from directing as a career. Like, he hasn't really been seen since 2010's The Box with Cameron Diaz and James Marsters.
Never heard of it, never seen it.
It's so.
It's a weird one. We are going to do a 0.5 on the career of Richard Kelly, so I don't want to get too far into it on this episode. However, it is kind of a shame to see that the reactions surrounding this kind of tanked his career and kind of didn't really want to continue in directing because I think he had negative experiences post this.
However, had The Box been a hit follow-up, it might have went a different route. I mean, he did try something else afterwards, it just flopped again.
But there was elements of Southland Tales that he didn't get to finish because he'd already started on The Box, hadn't he? So
The Box is very much a studio mandate movie. It's kind of one of those things where, right, we gave you free rein, now we're roping you in, and I think he clearly did not.
I'm still laughing to myself about The Simpsons. You can have the money, or you can have what's in the box.
The Box. The Box is a weird one. The Box is not a film I ever really wanted to revisit, but it is just kind of a halting of a
good cast.
It's got a great cast. Again, this has a great cast. There's no. Also, before we do it, because I think we're about almost ready, I do want to mention that we are watching the Cannes cut, which is the one that was booed and heckled at Cannes, which only adds 10 more minutes into the actual film.
So is it like 10 minutes like interspersed between different scenes?
It's 10. No, wait, I don't know. All I know was the Cannes cut came out. Sorry, the Cannes version that was shown at Cannes is the one that we are watching today. But they took 10 minutes out. Like, I don't know what.
So I imagine it's a
too
scene here,
substantial.
scene
Yeah,
there.
nothing that actually changes the structure of the narrative as much as just kind of.
Let's
maybe was
see if you can
superfluous.
spot them, expert.
Well, I'll try. I've seen this film enough times that hopefully I will be able to spot them. But we'll give it a go. Okay. I'm excited for you guys to see this. I want to just kind of end this little section on who's ready for it, who's positive vibes going in, who wants to kind of say what they're thinking right before they go in.
No, like I say, I miss these actors. It's going to feel like going back to the 90s for a while. I don't get to see many of them anymore.
I feel like I'm going into a test.
That's more accurate. Yeah, that's a very accurate
I'm
response.
going into this movie and it's like it's a test of intelligence as to how many things you can come out with and go, I see how this represents this. And
yeah, I feel like I'm going to a wine pairing having no fucking knowledge of wine. Yeah, you feel like I get what you mean. I feel like I'm going to be judged on the second half of this based on how much I actually process this film. But yeah, I agree with Ryan. I think like it's glossy, it's well shot, it's got good music, it's got a good cast. It might be a fucking train wreck, but I think it looks like it's going to be...
Just don't strain yourself.
It looks like it's going to be a fun film, although I do, like, struggle if it doesn't...
It's 2.5 hours as well.
thing,
How
it's
long
a
do you
long
think
one.
you're going to stay awake for?
Oh, I'm putting money on this one. Like, this is a bet. I'm thinking 2 hours. I think he'll try his hardest, but I think he'll collapse.
I would have gone sort of 1 hour 40 mark, I think.
I'm saying 2. Right?
It's just frustrating if I do that.
Make him comfy, Hannah, and I'm going to put it on 2 hours.
Okay.
Hang on, are we making a note of this anywhere?
It's been a while.
It's 3 numbers, Hannah.
It has been a while
I've
since
already
I've had
forgotten Ryan's.
But yeah, I do. If you have a chance to get a copy, you can find this on Amazon. You can also get a beautiful Blu-ray copy. If you get a chance, we are kind of. I'm going to plug this copy because it's stunning. The Arrow Films do a stunning re-edition of it. It's getting a little bit more attention now. It's sat in dormancy for a while, and we're just now getting a gorgeous re-release of this. So hopefully this gets the Blade Runner treatment, and people start giving it the appreciation it deserves potentially.
And we get Southland Tales 2049.
That's the one. Yeah, let's see it. Let's see it happen with really old Dwayne the Rock Johnson as a replicant. Right,
Post-president.
Post-president. We will see you in 2.5 hours. Well, not for you, for us. You guys don't have to wait 2.5.
But do go watch the film.
Go watch the film. Go watch the film. Bye.
Southland Tales might have broken me.
This is the way my mind ends. This is the way my mind
It genuinely
ends.
feels like it's been
This is the way
movie.
my mind
shattered
ends.
into pieces.
We are just going to mumble nothings into the microphone for the next half an hour because that's how I feel, and that's how I am going to feel for the rest of the day.
Yeah, I think our insights may be completely improved. So
if nothing makes
sorry in
sense
advance.
from here on out, it's because that movie scrambled our fucking brains. It's 9th time watching it for me. Like, I've seen this a fuck ton of times, and I still have questions. So yeah, we have just come back from watching the 2.5 hour Cannes cut of Southland Tales, and I feel like I've been on a pilgrimage to hell. The film opens with T.S. Eliot quote and that handy cam footage of that like it's like a southern U.S. barbecue, isn't it? And it kind of sets up
family footage, home video, really cute.
with the garbled misinterpretation of the T.S. Eliot poem. So that like this is the way the world ends is from a T.S. Eliot poem. I think it's the Hollow Men. It's from really really famous quote, and it's kind of him repurposing. So the original quote is "This is the way the world ends, not with a bang, with a whimper."
Yeah.
And he flips it. So if that is kind of an indication of how pretentious this film's going to be throughout.
Cards Against Humanity didn't make that up.
No, I swear to God. So we've just come back from watching Southland Tales. We're going to try and just dissect this film for you guys. That's our mission, that's our goal, and we're going to do our fucking best.
It's going to be a messy autopsy.
Yeah, I'm fucking excited for the synopsis. How
I'd write.
are you going to do this?
I thought for a while to write my own. I was like planning to write my own, and I got a few sentences in, and there was just no way. So I had to Google like Southland Tale basic synopsis, and I got it down to like a paragraph. So should we give it a go?
Let's do this.
Let's see how we do. Because like let's be honest, there's about 8 plots simultaneously happening at once. But let's do the main thing. So, with the United States under a threat of a nuclear attack, the lives of several people converge in a dystopian Los Angeles. Movie star Boxer Santero, played by Dwayne The Rock Johnson. No, sorry, not The Rock Johnson, just Dwayne Johnson. Plans his next film with the help of ambitious porn actress Krista Now, played by Sarah Michelle Gellar, and a troubled policeman Roland Taverner, Sean William Scott. Meanwhile, Marxist revolutionaries, greedy corporations, and secretive government agents pursue their separate agendas among a paranoid populace. Now,
I wish it was that easy.
That's not the film. Let's be honest. That's like the skeleton of the film, but the film is so much more than that. Almost too much more than that.
Can we just say it also does a George Lucas and starts in chapter 4?
Yes, it's first kind of after that first little handycam which is actually quite a sweet scene. I like the opening scene. It's kind of this very homely, kind of very quaint, all-American barbecue.
That's adorable. The family's massive.
It sets up the nuclear attack because we see kind of from a first-person perspective this nuclear bomb going off, which leads us into the futuristic, dystopian, Orwellian timeline that we're in, and it explains kind of what we're about to see for the next 2.5 hours. And then from there, I don't really know where to start. First timers thoughts? What do you two think specifically from you? Because me and Ryan have had a perspective on this before. So I think from you guys, did we enjoy it? Did we hate it?
Every time I feel like I've grasped an aspect of it, and then I think about it a little bit more, it becomes less clear.
Yeah,
Yes.
like I feel like I grasp a bit, and that breaks another bit.
Yeah, it's okay, that bit makes sense, but then that contradicts that bit. I stayed awake as a film.
He did.
You know what?
Can we give him a non-audible round of applause? Because well done, Jack.
So I feel like the headache from watching this was.
I did have quite a headache halfway through. I don't know if that's dehydration from the day or just the film.
Just the stress.
Fucking write in if you get a headache too. Let's say it's a correlation. But yeah, as a film, there were funny bits that were meant to be funny.
Yep.
The soundtrack was the star of the show.
Exceptional.
The best thing about this film is the soundtrack, without a shadow of a doubt.
You could just put the movie on, turn away from it, and just listen to it. And
See, I don't know if you could, because there's still the dialogue. All I know is that pimps don't commit suicide and nobody rocks the cock like Kristen now. That's literally the only two things I've learned from this experience. But yeah.
But we have learned. I mean, I'm going to go ask some pimps now. Be really mean to them all you want.
See if you can get them to commit suicide.
They'll never kill themselves.
I am so glad I watched Donnie Darko yesterday, because for me it feels like the basic principles of time travel are the same in these two films, except it's much easier to digest in Donnie Darko.
Well, it's loosely done off the Book of Revelation.
The Revelations,
isn't it?
Yeah.
So if you sort of apparently, which is also quite hard to understand in itself, written in the 1st century kind of thing.
It's the best sold book ever made, isn't it? You know?
Technically.
Yeah.
That bit where the fucking Jesus tattoo bleeds at the
Yeah.
end.
A lot of the symbolism is a little bit too on the nose, which
it's
I think
so ham-fisted, man. Some of
But
it.
I thought that was the other guy. I thought it was the policeman guy that was
Taverner.
the Christ figure. Yeah.
No, he's bigger.
Sean
than-
William Scott.
he's the one who kills God. Is their analysis of it? So let's zoom back.
Yeah,
So
let's slow
we
it
are
down.
going to confuse the fuck out of everyone with this. So let's zoom back. Let's start where the film starts on chapter 4. So this tells you right off the bat. It comes up with the title screen saying chapter 4. I can't remember what the subtitle was for it.
A New Hope.
Yeah, New Hope. Yeah. But it's one of those cases where it tells you right that there are three. I guess it's 3 comic books you're meant to have read beforehand, which. Making the audience do homework before you see the film, not really the best way to start. I don't know. It feels like you're already starting on a really.
Maybe that's where the pimp line comes from.
I mean, it's probably said throughout that as well. It's one of those things that it's overly ambitious. It's like the antithesis of like underachievement. It's like he wants to do everything at once. He wants to have his cake. He wants to have several cakes and eat them all at once. Now, I came up with like a list of all of the different subplots that are in this film, and
That's impressive in itself. I'll be honest.
I was on a while doing it, but I want to kind of run through it and just really quickly list them off and see if I missed any, because I think I might have. So we've got the politicians, the Republican Party, which is pretty much the only party in the race at the minute. The Democrats have been wiped out. They're trying to get re-elected. We've got the neo-Marxists, which are
what's left of the Democrat Party.
What's left of the Democrats trying to overthrow their election race with using a sex tape of Boxer.
Yeah, they're like eco-terrorists, but political eco-terrorists.
They're just terrorists. There's nothing. They're kind of eco-terrorists, but it's more
One
like.
of them was nice.
You've got the narrator. You've got Pilot Abilene, who's telling the story, but he's also connected to the story because he's friends with Roland Taverner.
That confuses me more than anything, I think.
Who's a soldier who went through a time rift with Boxer Santero, creating 2 separate versions of them. You've also got... I'm getting really stressed out doing this. You've also got the porn star Kristen Now, who wrote a screenplay with Boxer Santero in order that the screenplay predicts what's going to happen, that the world's going to end when these 2 people meet.
Don't forget she has pop music. She also has a jewellery, a
She
clothing
does.
line.
She does. Energy drink.
She's on it. Talk show.
You've got the neo-Marxists setting up a race riot, which you picked up, Jack, and that
There
isn't
was
really a
literally
race riot.
Well, the way they implied it, there's a footage of a cop killing an unarmed black man, and then there's riots on the street to imply that it's a race riot. And literally, I was trying to count, and 99% of the actors and actresses in that scene were all just white people shooting each other.
Yeah, I'm not even halfway through the list, guys. Like you've got the U.S. IDENT, which is the 1984 Orwell surveillance police that have guns and snipers. Yeah,
snipers on every rooftop.
You have the governor's wife who is in charge of that, and she's fucking a random dude who I think was part of the neo-Marxists because I think he took her gun. You've got the army. You've got the army involved. You've got these weird little side plot with the army and the drug.
You haven't mentioned the corporations yet.
I haven't even mentioned the
Liquid Karma.
Liquid Karma. They've created a perpetual motion machine that creates energy that's also a drug that the soldiers use.
Yeah.
You've got the fact that the screenplay is kind of the story that's actually happening, that the screenplay is kind of Southland Tales in and of itself.
You've also got that the police guy was the one that shot the narrator.
Yeah.
And his guilt for it at the end is what they're going for.
What we're trying to say, guys, is there is about 30 films in this one film alone. And I love it, but I'm also frustrated. This is probably the hardest one for me to actually explain because I don't know if I love this or I absolutely despise it. And I feel like this is every time I watch this, I'm either this is super ambitious, it's really creative, it looks cool as shit, it sounds cool as shit.
In theory, it sounds like an excellent anthology movie.
It would have made, as I said at the start, I think it would have made a phenomenal TV show.
Yeah, absolutely.
2.5 hours is not enough time to resolve how many aspects he wanted to resolve.
Oh, absolutely. Like, it's too much. It feels rushed. It feels crammed in. And I think the ending, especially, like, rewatching the ending, I feel like that a lot of what happens at the end comes out of a necessity to wrap things up almost. Like, oh, shit, I've got 20 minutes left. I can't go any longer. I mean, we watched the Cannes version, which is the first time I watched it, which we were thinking, right, 10 extra minutes. There's a whole new fucking character in this.
There's a whole D&D aspect.
Yeah, there's a whole like extra general played by what's her name? Gina Carano, I think her name is, and she's in Ratatouille. She's the voice of the main woman in Ratatouille. She's
going to say
loads of shit.
there.
No, can you imagine? Can you imagine? Gina Carano, I think her name is. But yeah, she's just not in the original cut. They cut her out entirely. So, like, as if we needed more shit to fucking like consider and remember.
I quite liked it though. Oh, it was a good addition.
I think what I picked up on, and I hope I'm kind of getting your two perspectives specifically because you've watched Donnie Darko recently. Where this one falters and Donnie Darko succeeds is because Donnie Darko is still ambitious. It's still something that's existential and philosophical, but it focuses kind of on one element. And
it's a singular narrative.
Yeah, it's a singular. It's not worried about a million different characters. Like, we were 40 minutes into this and we were still introducing main characters. It was that kind of situation.
Donnie Darko, you could interpret it in many a different way. You could, and there's many a different way you can look at it.
He wants you to get it.
Yeah, I get you.
But there's so many of them. There's so many different timelines and things that you can interpret in so many different ways that you just have absolutely no feckin' idea what's going on.
I don't think it was bad though. Like, all the individual scenes and story plots that were going on were entertaining.
It was well acted too.
Well acted. It was well shot. I mean, the scenes were beautiful. Like even down to like choreography.
Yeah.
They'd like the dance number they did
can we
in the
please
middle.
talk about the killers scene? Because they stop the movie. They basically stop the movie halfway through to have a killers music video, but it's the best scene in the film. And
this is what Liquid Karma does to you.
Yeah, it's a scene where Justin Timberlake's character Abilene, he takes Liquid Karma and he kind of trips out and does this whole choreographed musical number with like these kind of American versions of like nurses. I think they're meant to be like war nurses and stuff like that. It's such a well put together scene. And it's such an entertaining scene to watch. But you're right, it comes out of nowhere. There's no need for it, and it does add like 3 minutes to it.
Let's talk about Liquid Karma. Okay,
how
the science teacher would like to discuss. Liquid
Go on,
Karma.
Jack Science Corner.
So, from what I gathered, the fucking perpetual motion machine thing. There was I read somewhere actually there was the blueprint they used was some mock-up based on a designed Tesla put together.
Okay.
It was anyone, it would be Tesla.
Of course, but it was never like, come to life.
Yeah.
I mean, he built a death ray, he had plans to make machines to control the weather using electricity. He was, he created the 20th century, and he was also slightly an evil genius as well.
Yeah.
No, tracks.
Again, cringe at the word perpetual motion machine for a start. And also, it's a fuel source that is also a drug.
It mimics the ocean, yet it is also a drug.
Yeah,
yes.
They never explain that. So it's a machine, but it's also a liquid and a substance and a drug and a fuel. Come on. Does the machine make liquid karma using the fuel from the ocean? What the fuck?
It's a 21st century
but,
cure-all.
and also it's causing the Earth to slow down its...
By
0.06%.
That wasn't enough noise.
But that's another subplot. That's what brings in these time rifts, which is what Boxer and Dwayne The Rock Johnson's character and Sean William Scott's character travel through in order to create the duplicates of themselves.
Did that cause a time rift, or did the nuclear bomb cause a time rift?
No. It was the slowing of the Earth. They said that caused anomalies, that caused the time portal to open. And for them to travel through. You're right. I feel like we're going to talk about this and we're going to remember more things. I just remembered Zora. There's a character called Zora who's like a triple agent at one point. She's working for the Marxists, then she's working for the government, then she's working for herself, and then she dies. And then that's it. And
I'm playing both sides, so I always win.
But I also think, because like comparing it to Donnie Darko, which you can't help but do, I also feel like Donnie Darko is rooted in a lot more of a human, emotional... Like, the people in this film are caricatures. Whereas Donnie and his family, they feel like real people. They feel like there is an emotional thread there, and there's an emotional payoff when he has to kill himself, when he has to sacrifice himself. Whereas I feel like this one is so cartoonish that the sacrifice at the end doesn't hold anywhere near as much weight.
Well, you've got the Baron who's dressed like a Hunger Games villain, isn't he? Like,
they all are.
And all the little minions, like...
And also, the girls were like, oh, he's going to have to die. And they were like crying up and tearing about it. Then they all died. They knew they were all going to die, but they were only sad that he dies. Like, fuck.
let's talk about some positive aspects, because I think we have. It's hard not to be. I don't feel like we're being negative. I just feel like we're being.
No, it's like Adolf Linkler. It's hard to pin down what
It
it
is.
stands for.
It's a very difficult film to come to a conclusion as to what we feel. But I do positive
Deservedly
elements.
confused, I would say.
Yeah, the acting is exceptional. Like, I think every single one of the actors. I think even you see this cast and you see Justin Timberlake, you see Sean William Scott, Sarah Michelle Gellar. I mean, obviously, The Rock has made a name for himself, but the other guys, acting
Dwayne
wise,
Johnson.
sorry, yeah, the other guys have kind of almost faltered and become kind of like celebrity has-beens almost. But I do think they're all perfect in the roles. And you're right, like Sarah Michelle Gellar doing something that is so out of her wheelhouse, being this entirely just sex crazed pornographic actress. She's having so much fun, and you can tell, and it's a pleasure to watch. And I think they all are. I think Timberlake as well is having so much fun, and it's just an absolute joy.
Timberlake apparently loved making this film, but still to this day has no idea what it was
I think
about.
that's fair.
But
again,
it was fun. I mean, he got to make a killer's music video.
He's in
with
that
That
scene
seems
in
to
the
be
film.
most of the takeaway from all of the cast was like, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching it. I have no idea what it's about. It's odd.
But you look at the cast, you can clearly tell that this guy was in high demand. Like, you have actors who, these really high name actors, you're like saying that there's a guy from Chuck in there, there's loads of actors
Rapunzel's
who...
in there.
Rapunzel's
from
in there.
Tangled.
There are cameos from like really high profile directors. There's a scene where Eli Roth, the guy who made Hostel and Hostel 2 and all those really cool like exploitation films, there's a scene where he gets shot on a toilet and he's in it for about 2 seconds.
Why was there
Speaking
so
of
many
the
giant
toilets,
everywhere?
yeah. What was the obsession?
I feel like
with
it's
sex and poo and vomit. Yeah.
You remember how like Verhoeven has these motifs where his motifs were
Dog food.
nails, dog food,
Yeah.
chips. I do feel like he's just trying to. I don't know what it is. I don't think it's like it's something to do with America's obsession with prudishness. I think, and this idea that America is kind of, especially the right wing version of America that this future's trying to depict is kind of very kind of conservative.
Oh, so it's
and
literally doing toilet
it's literally
humor.
toilet humor. But I think that's intentional. I think that's actually
Yeah,
quite
physical
clever.
Play into that
representation.
weird car advert that they saw in the middle.
Oh, that's in.
Wait, what?
The car fucking. I think you were out the room. I think you went for a I don't know what you went for, a
There was
slash
an
or something.
advert where a car.
Sorry.
There was an advert where a car grew a dick and fucked another car.
Excuse
Like
me.
Did you miss
wheels
this?
came
Yeah,
out
we're
like
gonna have to show you
spider
this.
legs.
Was this like not in the original film?
No, it was. This is in the original. That's not
and then
added.
I watched this. I remember how little I remember.
the
Maybe you
car,
blacked
the
out.
receiving car, its exhaust turned into
A vagina.
a vagina.
They kind of pass it off as this like European thing. Apparently, that's what they think Europeans like. They say like, "Oh, it's just a European thing," and I'm like, I
They were
don't-
like, this
There
one
are
won't
some
be
weird adverts out
airing in
there.
America. And like, this
Yeah.
is definitely for the
what
for
I
the
can't
Europeans.
tell about it, because I from my memory of watching it before, I remember it being a very political film, and it is a very political film. But I can't tell if it's leaning to either side, and I quite like that it almost seems very balanced. It's almost making fun because it is satire. It's making fun of both sides quite fairly and justly and balanced, which I quite like. I don't think there's any like, oh, the right wings are all idiots or the left wings
Well,
are all
the
idiots.
representation of the left and the right, being the senator and the Marxist leader, just hate banging at the end, kind of
Yeah.
brings them together.
Yeah, that was an interesting way to end the film. where the two
It's
political
almost like the
factions
biggest
just fought.
takeaway is just like, yeah, everybody wants to hate fuck everybody, and that's the right. Either everybody's fucking everybody, everyone's working against everybody. It does feel like every other scene is someone else double crossing someone
Oh
else.
my god, another side thread. The fake doctor aquabiologist who was given...
Which one's this now? Because there's like 40
So,
characters.
Dwayne Rock Johnson's screenplay character, who that
Oh.
lady who was working
Who-
at the control centre
yeah.
saw,
Yes.
who became obsessed with boxing,
Yes.
who
I
then
forgot
pretended to
about
be
that
one
one.
of his characters in the screenplay, who then fed him information, went and found him, fucking killed herself. No, she got
No, she
shot
got
because
shot.
she threatened to kill herself if she couldn't suck his dick.
There's far
Yeah.
too much to process. It's like if there's anything we want you to take away from this episode is like this is you're right, Jack. This is something that should have been given out in a much larger kind of format where you could have actually delved into some of the characters and delved into some of the
I
the
am
plot
wanting
threads.
more. I want
Yeah.
more now that I've seen
Yeah,
it
and
again.
Well,
I want
comics.
to understand it, which, if anything, is a win, right? That means that they've won us over. He's given us a piece of this universe, and now I want to know what the rest of that
Yeah, it's
universe
been
holds.
Good luck getting the comics though. Very hard.
I do think one of its biggest kind of takeaways is it is consistently trying to be philosophical. At every turn, there's another poetry quote. There's another philosophical just jargon, really, and some of them just completely fly past the radar and don't land whatsoever.
I realized to keep using Robert Frost a few times.
Well,
like
one of
his
the main
favourite.
character, the governor's Frost. I can't remember what his first name is. It might be Robert, but the governor's name is Robert Frost. But they do reference Robert Frost's poetry several times, like the two roads diverged in a yellow wood kind of thing.
Isn't like the roads diverge the name of the first comic?
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, that actually might be. Yeah,
yeah, makes sense.
And I often wonder whether or not because it is philosophical and it is poetic and it is art. But how much of it is like pseudo intellectualism?
Yeah.
Like how much of it is he's just trying to be smart without actually
Jack was
saying much?
A lot of it was ham-fisted, and I think that plays into that same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, positives though. We were all of us consistently laughing because it is billed as a comedy. Like it's a post-apocalyptic dystopian comedy. It's genuinely funny. Like there are genuine laugh out loud moments, and I think again it shows that he is a very competent director. He is quite a competent writer because he wrote and directed this, which. As a project alone, that's hella ambitious.
Oh, yeah, that's an undertaking. I feel like this is one of the first ones we've done where I've laughed in the right places. And I've appreciated it how it's meant to be appreciated. I'm just confused.
Do you ever feel like he did Donnie Darko, right? And he had all of these concepts for time travel, and as he was writing Donnie Darko, all of these mad things were going off his brain. What happens if this happened? And what happens if this happened? And he just waited until after and smashed them all into a film.
Yeah, these are just the leftovers.
Because there's so much of Donnie Darko in that film, like the way that they time travel, the fact that they've got to go into like a metal capsule, like you mentioned earlier on, the artifact, the fact that guy gets shot in the eye. I don't know. There's a lot of symbology that clashes with Donnie
Darko. Yeah, the cop gets shot in the opposite eye
to Frank
in Donnie Darko. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether that's of significance or not is...
It might just be an Easter egg.
But there was so many images of Frank the bunny. Like in the Killers, the music video scene, the pattern on Aberline's shirt is the same as the kind of outline and silhouette of Frank the Bunny. There's posters of him everywhere. There's kind of references to his older films, which I would like to see like an MCU style shared universe of just time travel. Like what the fuck?
I'm not sold on the plausibility of this dystopia.
Okay, I get you. I'm gonna go with you on this.
Maybe I don't know. I don't know why. Was it just because it was so close to the event and so much had changed and the way things were completely U-turned?
Oh yeah.
Or maybe had it been set 10 years, 15 years, 20 years into the future.
Yes.
I feel like it would have had far more validity as a dystopia, but then again, I don't know how that ties back into the comics because was the bomb of any relevance, or was that just the catalyst for the new normal?
Well, there was a World War III as well. They mention, I think they mention it in the film or in the comics, but there was a World War III and there was 3
They do
nuclear
mention
attacks.
it in the film because that's where that guy gets drafted.
Yeah, but I think you're absolutely right, Jack. Like I think not enough time has passed. They say it's like 2 years since the bombs. It doesn't feel like
a perpetual motion machine in that time.
And you're right. Everyone's wearing Hunger Games capital clothes. Like, what the fuck? Like
bad shit.
Yeah, in 2008. Give it 15 years since the bomb went off or something. Maybe you could say, that kind of tracks.
Yeah.
I just the dystopia didn't sit with me. As he tried to do a lot of things like, what do dystopias have? They're normally hypersexualized.
Surveillance is a big one.
Surveillance, tick. Oppressive government, tick. He feels like it's almost like a ticky box exercise. What would an American semi-modern dystopian be?
I think part of the day it was based in 2008, wasn't it?
Yes.
Right, so that was the year like it came out. So I feel like he wanted to do that date. Maybe he was just like, maybe we couldn't have a World War III too long ago, so he just kept it close.
The initial film that they open up with is 2005, isn't it?
4, 5?
No, 2004, 2005. So it's only
3 or
4 years afterwards.
Yeah, it's not directly afterwards. It's about 3 or 4 years after.
In that time, they'll have had to overcome being nuked to get back to
and no one
this
talks
civilization.
About the bomb. No one talks about the fact they were nuked.
They're not nuked once either. They're nuked 3 times.
Yeah. They're still talking about 9/11 20 years on, but no one mentions the nuclear bomb that went off 3 years ago.
There were black and white pictures just of the nuclear explosion plastered like all around one wall. It was really odd, bad taste.
I don't even think we've talked about the Zeppelin yet, have we? That's another.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
there.
So was it 3 nuclear bombs?
Yes, they were all in the Southland as well. I think they were in Texas. They said, or they were kind of definitely lower down. Which makes me wonder what the north of America is like. Like, is New York the same? Like, because this is all Los Angeles, California. What's going on in New York? Like, is the same kind of riots in the streets? People dressed like Capitol members?
As a geeky scientist, I'm still thinking about like
how possible this is.
The Chernobyl fallout. Like the radiation rates and all of that sort of thing. it has massive long-term impact on the area around it, especially if fucking 3 of them went off, you know?
And you're right, like, we don't always expect our science fiction films to be spot on to the T, but you want a little bit
the
of...
world's stopping spinning, and that's magic.
Yeah, that's the one.
I mean, in the background all the time, there are scenes where there's like shots of like news and stuff going off with like
Yeah.
wildfires across the world and stuff. So we know that it's in turmoil and places, but it seems absolutely fine where they are. Like fine.
It's just it's
Apart from the time rip.
Again, he wants us to focus on too many things. He wants us to be able to process this many things in one sitting. You can't expect an audience to sit through a film 5, 6, 7 times to get it. You want an audience to get it the first time. And I'm not going to lie, I didn't. I still, I'm 9th time through, I'm still questioning a lot of aspects of this film. And in that measure, it's a kind of a failure. It's a spectacular failure, and it's a gorgeous failure, and it's a well-acted failure. And it's an interesting, funny failure, but it's still a failure. And I love it. But I kind of hate it. Like, again, positives. Let's talk some of the actors we haven't mentioned yet. Wallace Shawn, the guy from Princess Brides, he is exceptional as the Baron. He's like this really creepy German. I didn't mean that to sound a little bit like racist, but they make him like super ominous, and he's so hammy. Like he's playing.
You just want him to shout Excelsior at something.
He's the inconceivable, like absolutely just brilliant. The woman from Poltergeist, like he gets these really cool culty actors from like old 80s films, like the dwarf from Poltergeist. She's fucking exceptional. She's the one spouting off a lot of the kind of pseudo philosophical things. And he's making reference to even like David Lynch films. I mean, me and you, Ryan, talked about this prior. The woman, the singer who's sung the national anthem at the end. In the original cut, that's a much longer scene. They actually took
Best
things
version
out.
I've ever heard.
Yeah. It's beautiful. She made a kind of a name for herself in film through a David Lynch film called Mulholland Drive, where she does a very similar scene where she sings, and it's a very emotional, kind of very climactic song that leads to the kind of the finale. So that's a direct reference to David Lynch. Like he wears his influences on his sleeve, but whether or not he has his own voice, it does feel like he's scrambling, and it does feel like he needs someone to tell him to just calm the fuck down. Honestly.
Well, yeah, like you had Sean William Scott pull up to the house pretending to be his twin brother, the racist cop, who was just him from the past.
Yeah.
But then the 2 Marxists that are there, the actors who are going to pretend to get shot, have dressed up in really caricature Jewish makeup, Amy Poehler and whoever she's meant to be married to.
Yeah.
It's just weird because they just needed him to shoot like someone that was black.
Yeah.
But they've both dressed up as Jewish people as well, and it's weird.
Again, is he trying to send a message about racism in America, or did he just want to have the N-word in his film? It feels like, is it trying to be edgy for the sake?
Yeah.
It feels like there was so many different ways you could have.
And if he was being subtle
Force
against
that character.
ham-fisted, you're right.
Yeah.
Keep circling back around to that.
And can someone tell me why in this universe rollerblades had to change?
There's a lot of rollerblades. A lot of people rollerblade.
Why were the blades put on the sides?
Because it's a dystopia. Things are different.
Blade Runner? Perhaps? I'm just saying words now. That's this film does that sometimes. I'm just going to say random words. It's meta to the point of being obnoxious as well. Like they have this whole subplot where the script is kind of retelling the movie. So they have the script in the movie that's telling the events of the movie. And it's like, too many ideas, too many things going on.
That comes up quite pretty early with the script.
Yeah.
It pretty much
Like
lays
15,
out
20 minutes
yeah,
in.
exactly what's going to happen over the next 2 hours.
It's like the movie's playing this kind of fucked up version of Chicken with the audience where it's like, when you just don't think it can get any fucking weirder, it does a kickflip while jumping the shark and shitting the bed all at the same time. And it's just like, yeah, fair enough, I'm with you. I am with it. Like, I wasn't bored. I was never not entertained, but I was frustrated at times.
Yeah, I feel that. I had a lot of questions. I mean, for me, part of it was my fault. I watched it before and I remembered scenes out of order, so I thought Sarah Michelle Gellar was working with the Republicans when she wasn't. And once I got my head straight, it made a lot more sense. But again, I'm more confused about things that I wasn't before, but I've learned things that I didn't know previously.
Yeah, no,
it's
absolutely.
a big jumble, and I want to know more. I really, really love this film, and
I do.
Yeah, I want the comics. I want it to make sense to me.
You want to learn more about the universe. You want to have the full picture, because we're not really given the full picture is the problem, I think.
So does that mean, though, then, that it did do its job? It invited you into a universe and it gripped you?
Not by a movie standpoint, because it made a measly 300,000 back off its 17 million. Like, this was a massive bomb, And this is kind of the reason Kelly's career ended after this was a lot to do with the box office intake of this film. Didn't kind of foresee that I mean, he's predicted so much. The film itself, the satire in the film is still poignant. Like he talks about race riots. He talks about kind of the segregation of the classes.
Space Force.
Space Force. But I mean, even like surveillance. This was kind of. I think this was pre. What's the big surveillance thing in America? The company that fucking tracks everyone's phones.
Skynet.
That's yes. Let's go with Skynet. But it does, like satire-wise, it does hit on very kind of poignant themes in America still to this day. Like it's a lot of the paranoia post 9/11. It does play with that, and it plays with it quite interestingly. Like it portrays an America that is very deeply affected by war on home soil. Like, and I think there is credit where credit is due that it does tell this compelling story, regardless of whether or not it's jumbled and confusing. And
you don't know why, but you do genuinely love some of the characters, or like you get very invested in them, considering you know very little actually about any of them.
Yeah, like had the Marxist leader like died, I would have just flipped my shit.
It's quite impressive that a film can have about 40 main characters and have you invested in at least half of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, but on that logic alone, there are definitely successes that I think outweigh the negatives. There are negatives. This is not a perfect film.
Yeah, no, for me, it's more good than it is bad.
And there's a lot of exposition dumps. Like, I feel like what I was complaining about with the Donnie Darko director's cut, where it explains a lot, I feel like they kind of have to. But there are scenes where characters will just explain what's going on. And even then, it doesn't make sense. Like, even with the explanation, you're still like, nope, don't get it.
I think the soundtrack did most of the exposition in this, really.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Like, me and Bobby Mickey, freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. Obviously, all these things that I've done. Get myself, elbow.
Yeah. Wave of mutilation is in there as well.
A little bit ham-fisted, but, you know, no one knows what the fuck is going on, including the main characters. Tender by Blur.
It's a bitching soundtrack, and even the score by Moby, like the score all the way through, it's so it's so atmospheric. It so transports you into that world. It sends you through a time hole and transport you in. You're invested in everything that's going on.
I normally only passively listen to soundtracks in films, and I never remember what was in it or really pay attention. But this, every now and then, I just kept zoning in and being like, "Oh, this is fucking great."
There is a lot to love here. There is a lot to appreciate. It's far from perfect. It's miles from perfect. But I do think this has firmly planted itself in the cult, kind of the sphere of cult.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even necessarily, on reflection, call it best worst. It was panned. People fucking hated this when it came out. But I do think it's getting that appreciation akin to Showgirls. It's one of those things where people are reevaluating it. People are trying to understand it. People aren't just doing that like knee-jerk reaction to it, like, oh, this is just far too fucking much. It is far too much, but it's also, there's a lot of good within that far too much, if that makes sense.
I have a lot of questions, and I'm still wondering, is it pseudo-intellectual? Is it intellectual? Like, everything does feel on the nose, but at the same time, it is relevant, and I do enjoy it. So it's a really weird mid-ground.
I don't know if it's intellectual when you go into a library with a woman at the front desk reading a book called Evil Women, and the library is full of
literally.
evil women.
Filled with evil women.
Well, again, like,
Is it intellectual? That's the scene that springs to mind.
You're not wrong.
yeah, I'm kind of in the middle of both of you. I kind of feel like there are genuine moments of intrigue and satire and kind of a really interesting portrayal of dystopia. But again, on the reverse of that, on the flip side, there are scenes of pretension and there are scenes of pseudo-intellectualism that don't hit. It's a very much a 50-50 film of this works and this just doesn't.
I think you can tell that Kelly is an intellectual
He's
guy.
a genius, regardless of what you think.
His brain is clearly one of those that goes at 1 billion miles
Just
per
the
hour.
ability to write and direct this.
Absolutely. With so many things that are interlinked and they are sort of hinted at or looked at and things like that. So he himself, incredibly so. The film, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just a mismatch of all of these crazy ass ideas.
He needed more time. He needed a bigger space to do this. Or he needed an editor to tell him this doesn't work. Take this out, take this out, take this out.
Or just move them and split them and
But
maybe release like 6 films.
But I feel like my argument this whole time is he needs an editor. But I think with an editor, you don't have a lot of this film. Like, you cut an hour out, you still won't have...
You cut 10 minutes out, you don't have a lot of the plots.
Yeah, there was a whole thread there that was just eliminated.
Yeah. On the positives, there's some really interesting things to discuss. I mean, we've had this, like, we've been talking throughout the entire film, basically saying, like, discussing what the fuck is this, what's this. It's got us speaking, which is something you can't say about a lot of kind of big budgeted mainstream Hollywood directed films, which this was by this point. This had moved out of independent territory into kind of a much bigger. This got a wide release. This was kind of shown at film festivals all around the world. most films on that scale don't get people to talk on this level of intellectualism, and I think that in and of itself is a thing to appreciate.
Every time we say the word intellectualism on this podcast, I die.
I know a little bit, yeah. I wonder, like, should we do like a little drinking game every time? It's usually me who says it, let's be honest.
Pretense is real, girl.
Well, this is it. I relate to this film. I'm very pretentious myself. I get it. I totally understand.
I really hope in a 5-10 years' time this is picked up as a series. I really do. Do I care enough about the iteration of the film to go and read the comics? No.
Oh, see, I do. Like, I get you. I'm with you entirely on that. But I would actually like to read the comics.
I'm intrigued, but I don't care enough to follow it up with source material, comic books, whatever. It was a good premise, an interesting one, but again, I'm not that enthralled. I'm not at least not enough to go out and buy 2 fucking books so I can make sense of this film.
Yeah, I don't know if you took away some of the elements, if they would still carry as much gravitas. Like, if you took away the soundtrack, if you took away sort of like the crazy dance scenes and all that. Like I said, I think the music plays a huge part in enjoying this film.
Really
and obviously, if you put that in a graphic novel, you
lose
sort of,
it.
you lose that element. It's all in your head. So I don't know
Then
if
you
it
also
would...
have the artistry of the graphics themselves, which I fucking love.
That's true, yeah.
I also think Donnie Darko, like, something that the box loses is that level of kind of the interplay within the soundtrack and the actual narrative. Because Donnie Darko, the score in that is astounding as well. Like, all the 80s songs.
Yeah, it is.
He knows. I feel like if I had a beer with this guy, we'd probably end up agreeing on a lot of things. But you're right. Like, is it worth the 2.5-hour slog to get a few shining moments of wonder? Potentially not. I can't. Usually we talk about favorite scenes, but I almost feel like all of our favorite scenes is going to be the music. You're right. The music scenes, the killers scene, and the
national anthem.
The national anthem and the dance. Even the dance at the end, to the Moby track. It's astounding. They're the best scenes. He's a director who works very well with visuals and scores and music.
That scene at the end, though, again, it's like that. It's like the Donnie Darko bit where everyone knows what is happening.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that no one should know what is happening.
Yeah, it's kind of unclear, isn't it?
It's so. I find it, it's nice to wrap up and conclude the film with a bit of a.
It's hinted to like a
we're all in
joint
this together. This is what's
Yeah.
happening. Blah blah blah. It wraps up nicely as a presentation, but when you think about it in terms of a narrative, how the fuck how does that make sense? No, stop thinking about the
Told you
narrative.
the earth is slowing down, Jack.
Yeah.
But on that note, it's a film that wants you to think very deeply about its philosophies, but doesn't want you to think about the actual narrative in a does this make sense kind of way. It's like, definitely dive into what we're trying to thematically hint at, but don't worry too much about the whole fucking
How we got
perpetual
there.
motion.
Wide
Perpetual
as an
motion.
ocean, deep as a puddle.
Yes, that's probably a really good way to sum this movie up. I love it. I think it's an experience everyone should at least have once. If you're a madman like me, watch it 8 times. How many hours of my life have I wasted watching Southland Tales?
Well, 8 times 2.5.
That's math.
20,
I don't know.
20 hours. Lou.
That's quite bad, isn't it?
Pretty bad.
It does make me sad that Kelly hasn't really gone on to do anything after the fact. Like, the box was a massive flop. The box was something that kind of ended his career. I would have liked to have seen more from it. And it's been like a good 10 years since he's done anything directorial
Maybe
wise.
he's
I'd
just
give
spent
him
the
another shot.
time actually working on something that'll be cohesive and mind-blowing at the same time.
Don't give him too much.
Oh, maybe he's doing a secret movie. Maybe he's just really
hope
taking
so.
his time with it.
I would watch it. I'm ready to kind of wrap up on my final thoughts. Jack, you kind of gave a good summary of what you think. Yeah, you're right. Like, just not quite worth the effort of seeking out the novels. I don't know if you want to elaborate any more on that. Is that spot on?
Yeah, that's more or less what I've got to say. I think it's a good ride. I enjoyed the film. I don't regret watching it. I'm not going to do a deep dive on this one and look at like tinfoil hat theories or go into the lore of it. But I encourage you to watch it yourself and make up your own opinions on it.
Hannah?
Yeah, I think it's a good one to just go into and see what you come out with, because you might come out with a new favourite movie. You might come out with a bit of a headache. But there's definitely parts of it you will enjoy. I'm still processing, I'll be honest.
Just buffering. Not quite loaded yet.
Buffering.
You'll be thinking about it all tonight. Ryan, what?
I feel like I was right going into this. I did miss all those actors so much. Well, Amy Poehler, I saw recently.
We've not even talked about Amy
Parks
Poehler,
and Rec.
really.
And I saw her in this, and I still felt like, oh my god, I feel like I haven't seen you in ages, and I've missed you, and I feel safe in this environment, even though I don't know what's going on. But I feel like long into the night, I'm going to be asking you questions, and I feel like we're going to keep talking about this.
Yeah, which is a big plus in its kind of positives, pros column. It's simultaneously the most frustrating movie experience and one of the most entertaining movie experiences you'll watch, which is something you can't say about a lot of films. I think my kind of final takeaway from it is definitely watch it once. If it's your jam, if you watch this and think, yeah, I like this weird shit, watch it a few times. Watch Donnie Darko, do them back to back, get the comics. But no one would begrudge you for not liking this.
Yeah, you're not going to get the first time round, so if you live in Amsterdam, you might as well get stoned anyway.
If you live in Amsterdam,
there you go.
What?
Or America.
I don't know if we have any.
God, we're behind the times.
I don't know if we have any listeners in Amsterdam, but if we do, I've been learning a bit of Amsterdam. Oh, hello's just hello. I was going to say hello in Amsterdam.
We're now a language podcast.
But yeah, I think that's where we're kind of wrapping up on Southland Tales. Now, thank you very much for listening. I do want to give a quick plug to our competition that's currently running for our Wicker Man episode. We are giving away a beautiful 2-disc edition of the final cut of the Wicker Man.
Not the bees.
Not the bees.
Not the bees.
Not the bees version. The 1973 version, which is absolutely gorgeous.
Soundtrack.
Do check out our Insta, Twitter, and Facebook for competition information and how to enter that and how to get your hands on that copy. Anyone would be lucky to have it. We are also, we'll also be doing, we haven't decided what we're doing next week, but I think I've got a plan. So I don't know if you guys want to go with me on this.
I like a man with a plan.
Yeah, go on then.
Well, it's not that exciting. We're going to do Catwoman. Catwoman's been on the list for a while. It's been so long since I've seen it.
It's been a while.
We're doing Catwoman. So, and I know, Hannah, you're specifically excited for this. So.
I am.
But yeah, do check us out on our Insta and Twitter at Bad Taste Buds Pod. Do check us out on Facebook at Bad Taste Buds Podcast and check us out at badtastebuds.com. I've become a pro with that. I'm so fucking good at it now. Like listening to the first 4 episodes, I'm like, and then I'm like, on it. But thank you again for listening. We hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.
If you fall through a crack in space and time, don't shake your own hand.
Or do. I'm not your boss.
And remember,
nobody rocks the cock like Krista now.